All right, we're good.
All right, do you want to give me host privileges? Hey, what's happening, guys? This is Jerry at Wealth Dynamics, tuning in live for our wealth creation course. Tonight, we're talking about retirement plans and the truth about them, the things you need to know. So I'm going to go ahead and get my slide pulled up. All right, so we're going to dive into this. And what I want to hit with you guys is, boom, there we go. I want to hit with you guys how retirement accounts work. So we're going to talk about Roth IRAs, traditional IRAs, 401ks. Can you guys see my phone screen on the Zoom?
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Okay, so we're going to dive into this. And really what we're covering tonight is retirement accounts. The last couple of weeks we've done investing. And so we've covered annuities, mutual funds. Last week we did real estate. The week prior to that, we kind of talked about, the financial philosophy of how to control your money before you invest it. But this week I really want to talk about retirement. Okay, and the reason why is many Americans put their money in two places. So they're either going to put their money in a retirement account or they're going to put their money in a bank. Okay, so it's either a retirement account or a bank. Now, of the two places, really quickly, I'm going to break down the banking thing because we're not going to cover banking entirely tonight. I do want to tell you why we don't do banking so you can kind of see. And really the big problem with banking is this. So when you have money going into a bank, most of us naively think that the bank is going to take that money. Is our audio good? You want to check the audio real quick? Most people naively think that the money in the bank is just going to sit there. They're going to put it in a shoebox. They're going to hold it for you. They're going to wait for you to take it out. That's what I thought. Honestly, I was like, when I give it to them and they stick it behind the counter, I was like, it just stays there. That was my thought. And I was aware there was a vault. So I was like, well, maybe sometimes it goes in the vault, although I've never seen the vault. So I'm going to say it stays there in that box in the bank. Now, let's say you give them $1. You give the bank $1. What the bank does with your money is they do what is called fractional reserve banking. Okay, fractional reserve banking. If you're watching this, you're probably asking, well, what is that? Okay, fractional, what is a fraction? A fraction means a small portion. Reserve, meaning what they have set aside, their requirements. Banking is what they are. They're a bank. They're doing the condition of their job. But they're doing it with a fraction of the money set aside that they should have set aside. All right, so what does that actually mean? It means for the $1 you gave them, they only have to keep 10 cents of that dollar on hand, which means they loan out the other 90 cents of that dollar. Who do they loan it to? Mortgages, car loans, credit cards. Where do you guys think this money comes from? Banks don't have revenue. They just get deposits from you. They get your money. They loan it to other people. And so what we're looking at here is with the banking, they loan this out 90 cents on the dollar. So if you give them $1, they can take your $1 and loan the same $1 to 10 different people at the same time. Okay, so think about this. If they're loaning it to 10 different people, you've got 1 here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and they kept your dollar up here. So they loan this out to 9 people. They have yours on reserve. All right, do the math here. What's a fair car interest rate, vehicle interest rate?
You get a good percentage, maybe 5%.
Maybe 5%. All right, so let's assume that these are all vehicle loans. Okay, this one is paying 5%. This one is paying 5%. This one is paying 5%. And if we just go all the way through on the 5s here, all of these are being loaned out on your $1. And I understand this may look very confusing. To simplify, you gave them $1. They took your $1. They only got 10 cents of it left. They loaned your $1 to 9 other people at the same time. They're charging each of these 9 other people 5%. 9 times.
Share your screen.
Yeah. You can't see the camera?
People can't see it if your screen is shared. So unshare it until you start sharing the thing.
All right, cool. So 9 times 5 is 45. So they are earning 45% on your money. Okay, 45% on your money. How much does your bank pay you? My bank pays me 0.10%. 0.10%, and they're going to go make 45%. So just real quick, we said that people save money in banks and they save money in retirement plans. You have to understand why this is a terrible place to save money. Okay, think about it. Like if we were friends and you loaned me money because I said I needed it and I was like, hey, I'm going to keep your money safe. And then behind your back, I loaned your money out to 9 other people, made 45% on it and paid you nothing and didn't tell you I was doing it. How would you feel about me? We wouldn't be friends. You wouldn't loan me money ever again. You wouldn't want to talk to me. You'd be pissed, right? But that's what banks are doing. So off the table, off the bat, that's why we don't do banks. That's why you never save money in a bank. And I'm going to go into the slides here now and talk about, in addition to that, why we never save money in a retirement plan either. All right, so we're going to jump into our slides tonight, and we're going to go into the retirement plan thing. And you guys should see this pop up in just a second. And again, we're going to talk about 3 different accounts. Okay, 3 different accounts. We're talking about the Roth IRA. All right, can you guys see that again? Mm-hmm. We're talking about the Roth IRA. We're talking about the traditional IRA, and we're talking about the 401k, 403b, whatever you want to call it. There's different words for the same qualified type plan, right? Now, the first thing you got to look at is the type of plan. There's what's called a qualified retirement plan, which is usually a company-sponsored plan. And then there's what's called an individual retirement account. An individual retirement account is something that an individual is going to set up. So like a Roth IRA, that's an individual retirement account. Okay. Now, a 401k would be an example of a qualified plan. And the difference is, again, a qualified plan is typically sponsored by your employer. And then an individual retirement account, you typically open up on your own. So examples of these, you've got the traditional IRA. That's going to be an individual retirement account. That's what IRA stands for. Okay. You've got the 401k, which is, a qualified plan. And again, if you're in a nonprofit sector, you may have a 403b instead. That's the equivalent. You might have a 401a. You might have a couple different variations of the same thing. And then lastly, you've got the Roth IRA, which is also an individual retirement account. All right. Now, I want to jump first into the Roth IRA. So the Roth IRA is, or the traditional IRA is an account that you would set up on your own. And a lot of people will set up a traditional IRA as a supplement to their primary retirement vehicle for more tax deductions, or they'll set it up, as a solo plan. If they don't have a retirement account at work, they'll put the money in the traditional IRA. And the biggest thing here you want to know about, so contribution limits, an individual can put $6,000 per year into a traditional IRA. That's it. $6,000 a year into a traditional IRA. If you're over the age of 50, you get an extra $1,000. That makes it, you can put $7,000 a year into a traditional IRA. And it's something that you've got to look at too on track record. So the traditional IRA was established in 1974. Okay, it was established in 1974 as part of the ERISA Act. So the Employee Retirement Income Security Act. Basically what that means is that pensions went broke. Congress stepped in and they came up with a way for people to save their own money and get a tax deduction. That's all the ERISA Act was. The pensions started going bust. The Congress looked at it and said, hey, this is not workable. People are getting hurt. We're going to decide for them in these IRA plans now. Okay. So in 1974, it came out. I want to say that the actual contribution in 1974 was only like $2,000 per family. So when it first came out, you could only do like $2,000. Now realize that was in 1974. So if you inflation adjust that, that's significantly a higher dollar value, right? Now the other two, you guys are going to freaking love this. All right, so this is called the Power One FE calculator. Can you guys see the calculator on this? So if you want to figure out, like, say, let's say you've got $2,000 contribution limit. Let's say inflation has been 4%. We're about 35 years ago, 45 years ago, 1974 to 2000. Yeah, so that's 45 years ago. So inflation adjusted here, let's go ahead and cross that out. You would be able to put in $12,000 a year today if they inflation adjusted that money. So the $7,000 or the $6,000 you're putting into it or allowed to put into it is not even inflation adjusted for the dollar equivalent you used to be able to put in the plan back in the 70s. So people that are like, oh, I'm getting a deduction. The plan was better in the 70s when it first came out. Now, the other thing you want to look at here. So you basically contribute money into the plan. It's tax deferred. So when you put the money in, it cannot be taxed. And then when you put the money in, it's also tax deductible. So your contribution, you get to write off on your income. And I want to point out with the income, so people kind of mix this up. They think, well, if I put $6,000 into my traditional IRA, that's $6,000 less that I have to pay in taxes. Not the case, okay? So again, it is a income that you're going to be deducting. So if you look at this, so if you've got $6,000 and you're going to write that off on your income. So if I made, let's say I made 100 grand, well, now I would be able to say I only made $94,000, right? So what is my tax bracket? Let's say my tax bracket is 20%. Okay. So that means that basically on that 6,000, I would be able to deduct $1,200. That's what I would save in taxes. A lot of people think I'm saving $6,000 in taxes. I'm not. I'm saving $1,200, guys. $1,200. You're gonna give away $6 grand for the rest of your life every single year to save $1,200. Okay, have you ever been shopping and bought something you didn't need just because it was on sale?
And I regret it.
Okay, that's what this is with money. Okay, you are going shopping with the IRS. You're buying $6,000 worth of investments that you don't need because you can't use them till you're 60. Also, that you can save $1,200. Guys, I can teach you to save $1,200 by just writing off your car lease. Like, it's not that hard, right? So when we're looking at this account, I want you to realize your deduction is not the same as your contribution. Your deduction is not the same as your contribution. Don't think, hey, I can deduct $6,000 off because that's what I put in the account. No, you can't. You can only deduct the tax off that $6,000 because the $6,000 was income. So tax bracket multiplied against the 6,000 equals tax deduction. That's really what you're looking at, okay? Now, the other thing I want you to look at, these do have income limits. I'm not going to go into them. You can Google the income limits. So if you make a certain amount of money, you're not allowed to put money in the account. What does that say? That says these are middle class accounts. If you make a certain amount of money, you're not allowed to contribute. These are for the middle class. These are not for wealthy people. Wealthy people don't max out retirement accounts. Middle class people do. Okay. So the other thing I want to show you have mandatory withdrawals at age 70 and a half. So when you turn 70 and a half, it's called required minimum distributions. The IRS makes you take money out of the account. Why? Because it's their account. It's not your account. They're the ones that created the IRA. It's their account. So they get to tell you when you have to take money out of it. All right. And then the last thing I want to hit on this, the taxes on this money are taxed as income when you take them out. Income. Now, if you don't understand tax brackets, I'm going to break down tax brackets really quick for you. Or inflation. Yeah, that's another one you need to understand. So with the tax bracket thing here, so you have what's called a short-term capital gain. Short-term capital gain. And then you have what's called a long-term capital gain. Okay. A short-term capital gain means you held the investment for less than 12 months. You held it for less than 12 months. If you held it for less than 12 months and you sold it and made money, you would pay income tax on that. Okay. Long-term capital gains means that you held the account for more than 12 months. So check this out. If I put my money in the account, I'm 27 years old. If I put my money in the account and I leave it till I'm 60, that's a long-term capital gain, right? I'm not going to sell that thing till I'm 60. Okay, at a long-term capital gain, if I'm in a 40%, so if I'm in the top 1% tax bracket, my long-term capital gains rate goes down to 20%. Okay, if I'm literally anybody else, not in the 40% bracket, my long-term capital gains rate is 15%. So when I pull the money out of the traditional IRA, it's going to get taxed as ordinary income. Ordinary income is the highest tax bracket possible. The entire time, I could have just been in the long-term capital gains bracket, which is a lower overall bracket. Okay, so people think, man, I'm making a bunch of money on this tax thing. I'm going to avoid taxes. Dude, no, you're going to pay more in taxes. You could have just been paying 15% the entire time. Now you're going to pay, think about it. You're going to have this money grow. So it's a larger amount of money. Okay. And taxes will be higher in the future. And I know people are like, oh no, they go down over time. No, think about it. In 1913, the effective tax bracket was 0. Today it's 40. Okay. 0 to 40 is up. Taxes go up over time. So you will pay more in taxes 40 years from now, 20 years from now on a larger amount of money. Okay, taxes, when you do the math on taxes, you look at, 0 to 40, that's about a 4% climb every single year for the last century. So if you do the same math on that, you can imagine you're probably going to be in a 40% bracket, even at the lowest bracket possible in 30 to 40 years from now. So you're going to pay 30 to 40% taxes on this money when you withdraw it. All right, now I want to spin this a little bit differently for you to think of. All right, so you took the money out of the account and gets taxed as ordinary income now. That is effectively taking a loan from the IRS. When you deduct your contribution to get the tax break now so that you can pay the tax later, it's like taking a loan. I'm going to borrow the tax benefit now and forfeit it later. Later, I'm going to pay more. That's called interest. So you're literally being basically taxed. It's like interest. You're borrowing your taxes early from the IRS and trying to deduct it, thinking you're getting ahead of the game. Guys, that's literally like a slow cook crock pot. The IRS is making bank on that. Now, the other thing that people don't talk about, and this is kind of a theme with all of the plans I'm going to talk about, in 1986, and it says repeat, that should say repeal. Congress repealed the traditional IRA in 1986. Meaning in 1974, they started it. In 1986, they got rid of it. And then they brought it back later during the Tax Relief Act in like 1997. So I want you to just think about that as we're going through this. The IRS created the plan. They decided in 86 they didn't like the plan, so they 86'd the plan. They got rid of it, and then they brought it back later. Okay, and that basically shows you that they can do whatever the hell they want with this account. Everybody that was like betting on putting their money in a traditional IRA in 1987 found out they couldn't. And it was there for 12 years. So what do you think? 12 years? Like 2008 was about 12 years ago now, almost. People act like it never happened. Like it becomes the normal. It's called recency bias. It's been happening this way, so it will continue to happen this way. 12 years is long enough for that to happen. 12 years is long enough for somebody to say, oh, the traditional IRA will always be there. I'm going to put all of my money in it. It's the best thing ever. I get tax deductions, just to find out 12 years later, that would be 3 new presidents later. Okay, how long does Congress have? They're in forever, right? They can do whatever they want. So that's 3 new presidents, and they changed their mind and said, hey, we want to get rid of the plan now. This doesn't work for us. We're losing too much in taxes. All right? So on this plan, I want you to realize it's not yours, it's the IRS's. The next one we're going to hit here is the 401k plan. So again, the 401k plan, this came out actually in 1979. Okay, now a lot of people think it came out in 1978. The 401k is really just an internal revenue code. So when the IRS writes the tax code, they wrote a vague code. If you go to code 401k, it doesn't say the plan you put 3% in at your job. It describes a plan that an employer could set up and get tax deductions. It's not actually like a neat bow on top. So a guy named Ted Benna, he actually worked at a consulting corporation called the Johnson Company, and they would consult with businesses and help them create retirement plans. And so he had one particular client that was trying to get a certain outcome with their plans, and he came up with the idea of the 401k plan in 1979. Now, what people don't talk about is the IRS was actually trying to get rid of the Internal Revenue Code 401k at the time. So again, they started it and then tried to get rid of it. Just like the traditional IRA, they started it and then did get rid of it. So in 1979, Benna came out with it, and he basically, like, it wasn't a thing. Like, nobody was using it. It was just that company. There was only one fund. It was called the Equity Fund, and it was just the employees of that company with the employer of that company, and they were deferring their compensation into the plan. Now, after 1979, the plan got attention nationally. That's when Wall Street realized what they can do with the 401k. So Wall Street commercialized it and turned it into what it is today. Now, I want you to think of Ted Bennett as like the 401k plan's father. He created the 401k. Ted Bennett has said in several interviews that the 401k is a monster and I wish I never created it. Could you imagine hearing that from your dad? That's the equivalent. Like the guy that made it was like, yeah, I wish you were never born. I wish I never created you. You're that terrible. I wish that this thing was never around. So you have to look at like really the backstory on these accounts. Contribution limits, they just bumped them up. You can put in $19,000 per year. If you're over the age of 50, you can do an additional $6,000 into the account. Again, it was established in 1979 by Ted Bennett. And really like the setup on this is very similar to the traditional IRA. Tax deferred growth, tax deductible contribution. This one doesn't have any income limits. It's just got that maximum cap contribution. And then it has, again, mandatory withdrawals at age 70 and a half, required minimum distributions. You've got to take money out of the plan. All right. Now, when you pull the money out, again, it's taxed as income upon withdrawal. So it's, again, the same form of taking a loan from the IRS. And again, like I said, in 1978, 1979-ish, Congress was attempting to repeal this plan as well. You're going to see that's a trend. Congress will put the plans out, get people's attention on it, and then they try and repeal the plans later. All right. Now, I want to show you guys really quickly with these accounts, the downside and the risk of relying on the tax deduction. So again, let's say that you did put in the full $19,000. Let's use me as the example. Okay, so I put in $19,000 in the account. Okay, let's pretend I'm in a 20% tax bracket. So I'm going to get on my deduction here. I'm putting in 19 grand. I'm going to save $3,800 in taxes. Okay, so I'm going to, and let's say I just do this for 1 year. Just 1 year, I save $38 in taxes, just for the sake of simplicity. $3,800 in taxes is what I save here. Now, if we look at the projection of this, if I put this into my savings calculator, I put in 19,000. Okay, let's say I stick it in a mutual fund that grows at 7%, and I do that for the next 30 years. Okay, so 30 years, that's going to grow to $154,213. Dope, right? I'm like, man, that's awesome. I'm going to have 154 grand. Well, check this out. That 154 grand, we're going to copy this over, and we're going to take a bite off of that for taxes. Okay, so in my elderly years, I've got $154,000. Let's say my tax bracket has gone up because I plan on having more money at that time. I'm going to pay, let's say, 35%. So I'm going to pay $53,000, $54,000 in taxes, all so that I could save $3,800. Do you guys see how crazy that is? Why in the world would you ever do that? Why would you ever try and save $3,800 so that you can pay 54 grand when you pull the money out? Okay, not only that, the entire time I was paying fees. The entire time I was losing opportunity costs. The entire time inflation was eating away. The entire time tax brackets were climbing. And I was sitting there obsessing over how I saved $3,800 on my taxes. Guys, the 401k is a terrible idea. It's a terrible, terrible idea. And nobody dives into this with you. Your financial advisor, I used to be the guy. I would sit across from you and I would tell you, max out your 401k. It's a great idea. It's going to minimize your taxes. If somebody came to me with a tax problem, that was always my answer. Just put more money in your 401k. Why would you ever put more money in the 401k knowing that that would be the outcome? Nana, would you do that knowing that that would be what would happen? So the only reason that someone would do that is they don't know that that's what's going to happen. They've never done the math, right? So that's the 401k plan. The next one here is the Roth IRA. So the Roth IRA, check this out. The Roth IRA has only been around since 1997. 1997. When it first came out, I think the number was like the first year, like over $3 billion got put into Roth IRAs that year. And the reason why is all of the money goes into it and it grows tax-free. Okay, sounds great, right? Now the contribution is the same as the IRA, the traditional IRA. You can put $6,000 per year into the account. If you're over the age of 50, you can put an extra $1,000 into it each year. So again, $7,000. It was established in 1997 to relieve taxpayers. Okay, and then it grows tax-free. Okay, so your contributions are still taxable. You don't get to deduct anything, but when you put the money in the plan then grows tax-free. So that means that you don't pay taxes on it ever again. It sounds like a great idea. I'm gonna have my regular income just like I always do. If I put it in this account instead of my bank, invested in some mutual funds, when I finally turn 60, I can start pulling money out tax-free. Awesome, right? Now, this does have income limits. You do have to withdraw money, even though there's no taxes due on it. And then again, it's tax-free upon withdrawal. So this sounds like the perfect plan, right? You're like, man, this thing sounds ideal. There's no taxes, there's no gotchas. Okay, until you realize, hey, it's only been around since 1997. Okay, that means that the plan is 22 years old. Let me ask you, would you bet your life savings on your 22-year-old? No. You would be like, dude, you could change your mind on any given day. You don't even know what you want to be when you grow up. You turn 22, you're like, I'm going to conquer the world, but maybe I need to go to college too. You don't know what you're doing. So the fact that this plan's only been around for 22 years means that it has a insignificant track record. You can't trust it. It hasn't been around long enough. And when you look at the history of the last two accounts we just covered, the amount of changes they make to it, the amount of tweaks they make to it to just be like, oh, it's always going to be this way. That's naive. That's naive. It's denial is what it really is. So since 2013, Congress has been discussing making all Roth IRAs taxable. Think about that. Now, if you look at the numbers now, I think it's a stupid number. Like there's like $33 trillion in Roth IRAs. Like it's a dumb number. It's huge. Imagine all of that money being taxable. Like people put it in with the intention it's tax-free. They're cramming money in there as hard as they can. And then they find out, oh, all of a sudden this is taxable now. And you're like, well, they can't do that. Sure, they can. They'll just give you a tax credit. They'll say, well, here's what you would have gotten if it was a traditional IRA. We'll give you these tax credits now. Have fun with those because they know that they're going to make money on the back end. You guys have to think these things through. You can't just trust the government to take care of your retirement plan. What if they did change it? Like they have. In 1974, the traditional IRA was the cool thing to do. By 1986, it was banned. Just think about gold, guys. Up until 1931, our money was backed by gold. By 1971, gold was not worth anything. The government was no longer using it whatsoever, and they actually banned people from owning it. It was illegal to own gold. If you owned gold, you would be in very big trouble. That's our currency. Like you're talking about the Roth IRA, like, oh yeah, this thing's going to be forever. Guys, our US dollar couldn't even last forever. They changed it. They had that gold backed. Then they went to Federal Reserve notes. So if our currency, which has been around for hundreds of years, gets changed like that, and guess what? You didn't vote on that. You didn't have a say. They didn't come to your house and ask you, do you want gold? Do you not want gold? Just like they're not going to ask you, do you want your IRA taxed? So if they changed it, that would be it. There would be an announcement and that's it. Now you're taxed. Yet you rely on this plan like, man, this thing's going to be around forever and there's no way they could change it because there'd be a national uproar. Do you realize your money was backed by a real hard asset? Now it's backed by nothing. There was no national uproar. Nobody was even educated to know what it was. There's literally congressmen and senators that still think the dollar's backed by gold. That's how financially illiterate people are. So to think like, oh, the masses will protect me because we have it this way and it's always going to be this way, it's foolish. Okay, so that's going to be the Roth IRA. Now, with the Roth IRA, another thing you've got to really look at is that money is locked up until you're 59 and a half. So again, you're giving up opportunity cost. And if you're doing a traditional form of a Roth IRA where you put it into an account with a firm and the firm has the money and you pick the funds, you're going to pay fees the entire time. You're going to have no say in the investments. You're going to have to pick whatever they give you. And you're like, oh, but I have a financial advisor. Guys, don't think that because you have a financial advisor, you can pick any fund out there. I guarantee you, if you work for New York Life, they're going to recommend mainstay funds only. That's why they do that, because they get paid more if they do that. So you're like, oh yeah, I've got an advisor. They're looking out for me. No, dude, they're looking out for their commission statement. They're looking out for their quotas so they don't get fired. They're not recommending like anything that they think works for you. They're picking things that are just going to do what they need to. And if you're doing a Roth IRA, that's who you're working with. So that's the Roth IRA. Now, I want to go over a couple of the risks here. So the first big risk, and this should be a given, guys. This should be a given. The IRS invented the plan. Okay, back to this banking thing. This banking thing that I showed you guys on the screen here today didn't used to exist. We didn't have that method where banks could lend out your money. That happened in 1913. Okay, it's called the Federal Reserve Bank. It started in 1913. Do you know who else started in 1913? The IRS. The IRS is the collection agency for the Treasury so that they can pay their debts back to the Federal Reserve. So when you think of like banking, you're like, oh, you give them the money and they deposit it. And then when you take the money out, they give it back to you. No, that's not how our national bank works. When the Treasury needs money, they borrow money from banks. Lehman Brothers, Goldman Sachs, these giant banks. Those banks take the US government's debt and they sell it to the Federal Reserve Board, which they're part owners of, for a profit. So they're making money on that too. The US now owes money to a large private bank. The Federal Reserve Bank is not a federal organization at all. It's privately held. There's no reserve. It's got no money, and it literally just makes money up out of thin air. I think we're getting the weeds on that one. So the thing that I'm illustrating really here, guys, is the IRS is not on your side. They don't help you. They don't work for you. They're not trying to pave the roads and make sure the bills get paid and schools are funded. They're paying back primarily interest on US Treasury notes that are owned by the Federal Reserve Bank, and they're funding war. Those are the primary things that the IRS is doing with your tax money. Okay, after that, then they might pay some employees and finally cover public works projects. But that's primarily what your taxes go to. The majority of it goes to interest owed on bonds, debt, because our country borrowed money from a bank. So when you think about that, what does that make the IRS? It makes the IRS a collection agency. They're a debt collector. So you're really gonna like think about it. We've all owed debt before. We've all had collection calls before. So let's say I owed you money and you called me up and I knew you were the collection agency and you're like, hey, Jerry, you know, all business aside, I came up with an incredible investment idea for you. If you give me $7,000, I'm going to put it in this account. When you turn 60, you can have it back. And guess what? You can write it off on your taxes. I would instantly be like, dude, no, you're just trying to collect on the debt. I'm not stupid. You didn't come up with an investment. I owe you $7,000. You're trying to get the $7,000 from me to put it in the account, which if there really even is one. And I'm not going to do that. But with the IRS, you guys are like, oh yeah, this is great. I'm going to put the money in an individual retirement account. I'm going to get tax deductions from the IRS. Guys, they run the entire thing. That should be the biggest scam you've ever seen. It's literally the definition of cheese in the mousetrap. The sole purpose of the IRS's job is to steal money out of your paycheck. Think about that. They don't even trust you enough to let you get paid first. Why would you trust them with millions of your dollars over the next 40 years when they don't even trust you with your damn paycheck? Okay, so that's the first thing that should be fishy. Like when you're like, I don't know if this is real. Like you'd be surprised people that like ask us, is Wealth Dynamics a pyramid scheme? Yet they're throwing money in the IRS. That's a pyramid scheme. Like by definition, that is a pyramid scheme and you're willingly doing it and you're bragging about it to your friends. Okay, I'm financially responsible. I put money in my IRA. It's a dumb idea. Second thing, the risk, you're going from a capital gains tax to an income tax. Income is the worst tax bracket to be in. You do not want earned income. If you've ever seen the employee, self-employed, business owner, investor, the cash flow quadrant, you want to be on business owner, investor. Why? Because they're able to be taxed in categories other than just earned income. Employees and self-employed, they get pillaged on taxes because all they have is earned income. If I'm a business owner, I can get paid in dividends. I can get paid in capital gains. Same thing if I'm an investor. So what you're doing is you're literally forfeiting your chance to ever be an investor by putting your money in an IRA, by putting your money in a 401k. You will never get the tax benefits of being an investor. You'll always pay income tax. So those of you that are like, man, I want to retire and be financially free, by putting your money in a retirement account, you're literally burrowing yourself further into financial slavery. Now, the next risk here, and this is one that honestly should be talked about more because it's been attempted several times. It's called nationalization. Nationalization. Now, you're like, what is nationalization? Everyone's got an individual IRA, meaning it's for individuals. Imagine the government saying, no, that's everybody's money. Let's take all of it and we'll just put it into an annuity. We'll pay you all an income stream. Effectively, like taking all the IRAs and just turning it into another form of Social Security. That was first attempted by the Obama administration. It's been continually put up and attempted. Australia's already done it. I think Iceland has already done it. So it's not like unreal. Other countries have already nationalized their retirement accounts. So nationalize means that they take all of the IRAs, the government does. The government takes control of it. You don't have any say in it anymore. It's now their money and they manage it for everybody. And then you just pay you like Social Security off of it.
From a private.
From your IRA, yeah. So they would take your IRA and turn it into a government asset, just like Social Security, and they would just pay you income off of it. Yeah. So that's something that's on the table. It could happen anytime. Just because it hasn't happened doesn't mean it won't. And the risk that it could happen should be a big enough risk for you to say, no, I'm not going to do that. They've attempted it several times already. And other countries have already done it. So it's not like an undone concept that nobody's proven. They're successfully been implemented in European countries and Australia, all sorts of different places. So like think about like when you're thinking of retirement, you're really trying to build financial freedom. Well, that could instantly be taken away from you by having an account like that nationalized. Okay, the other one is custodial investment selection. You're giving control of the account up. Your custodian now gets to pick the account, the funds you're allowed to have, especially in a 401k, guys. Your employer actually has an agreement that if they only allow you to invest in certain approved funds, you can't sue them for losses in the account. So that's why you only have the Fidelity Target Date funds. Those are the only approved funds for that plan. That's why you only have a couple of American funds. And those are terrible performing funds. I sat down with a guy last night, looked at his IRA. Over the last 4 years, he has made 1.43% annually in his retirement account, which is in mutual funds. Like he's been pitched 12% returns, 8% returns, 10% returns. When he started here and 4 years later, he's got this number and we figured out the difference. It was 1.43 annually. That's a terrible rate of return. And he's going to pay taxes on it when he pulls it out. And inflation's been happening at 4% a year. That's already a negative 3%. He's going to pay taxes on negative 3%. You do not want to be with Wall Street, guys. Like think about 2008. Who caused that? There was a movie made that said Wall Street caused 2008. The Big Short, there's a book about it sitting right there on our desk. It was a real thing. 2008 was caused by Wall Street. That's why all of the Wall Street executives had these giant fines. They got bailouts. All this stuff happened, right? And you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to put money with them now. They got regulated. They're good now. No, they didn't. They got bailed out. By the IRS, bro. The federal government, your money bailed them out. Your taxpayer dollars bailed them out so they could continue stealing from you. All right. Now, the next thing here is fees. Again, I want to show you the fees thing really quick because your financial advisor will deny this. And I'm going to show you the proof of the fees that you pay. So let's say that you're putting in $500 a month in your IRA so that you can have your $6,000 a year. Let's say you're growing at 7% and you do that for 30 years. Okay. Do you guys see that? $609,000. That's what it'll grow to. Now, let's say that your fee is the average annual management fee of 1.25%. Do you guys see that bottom number? It says inflation adjusted. Really, we just type the fee in there. You're paying a fee of 1.25. your account balance just went down to $419,000. What does that mean? You just paid 200 grand in fees for somebody to literally read you a piece of paper and say, Nano, you made money this year. We should rebalance your portfolio. And Nano doesn't understand anything. He's like, cool, just get me out of here. I don't know what you're saying. It went over my head. I got a bunch of misunderstood words. I'm done. As long as you do your job, I'm good. Nano, your account's down this year. Guess what? Nano still got paid. The advisor still got paid his fees, even though Nano lost the money. So that's the fee thing. So when you look at like, all right, what are the risks? Realize fees are a risk. And I want to pitch you guys like if I were to say, hey, I'm going to put you in an investment and I'm going to speculate, I'm going to invest it with the most dishonest group of people in the world, and I'm going to give it to the IRS for 30 years. But don't worry, there's a guarantee. You will pay fees every single year. I can't guarantee you I'm going to do anything for you. In fact, I'm not even allowed to say it. I'm not even allowed to say that the money could do well because the SEC doesn't allow me to if I'm a financial advisor. I can't say, Nano, I'm going to make you money. That's illegal. I can't even say, hey, Nano, because you made money last year, you're going to do it again this year. That's also illegal. That's how you get fined and put in prison. So I'm not even allowed to claim to you that I can make money for you. But you're going to pay me fees no matter what. That's a terrible deal. Like, realize, like, when you fly out of the marketing and the sophistication that's been kind of wrapped around all of this, it's scumbag stuff, guys. It's terrible. Now, again, the last risk here is changes in legislation. We've kind of covered this. What if they did nationalize the account? What if they did, like, think about the Roth IRA. That's trillions of dollars in tax-free money. If the government has a budget issue, which we do, you really think they're not looking at the account like, I'm not supposed to, but I'm gonna. It's like a dad stealing ice cream from his baby's bowl. Like, no one's gonna know. I'm gonna go ahead and take a scoop. Junior can't do anything. He's not gonna tell anybody. That's how you're looked at by the government. So when we have a $22 trillion deficit where we owe literally, like, that's the amount our country owes right now, and our budget is at a deficit every single year, and we're spending in a deficit every single year, and they're groping for a solution, you don't think they're not looking at, man, there's about as much money in your retirement accounts as it would take to wipe off the debt. Maybe we should hit that. Like, it's not that hard to, like, put 2 and 2 together. Oh, if we snatch that money, we can pay off all the debt, and all we've got to do is change the law. You know that those are discussions they've had in the meetings that they have at midnight when you're not paying attention because you're too busy worrying about the new Miley Cyrus story that came out on the news, or right before the Super Bowl. Like, and I don't want to get conspiracy theorists on you, but Nano is right. They have these meetings when they know you're distracted. Anytime there's a stock market tank, guess what I do? I Google what bills just got put into play. Anytime there's an abortion thing on the news, or there's a homosexual scandal or a celebrity scandal, whatever it is, I always go look what bill just got passed. Why? Because you need to be paying attention to Kim Kardashian, not the fact that you're not going to have retirement money. That's the kind of stuff that actually does happen. Now, the last thing I want to share with you guys is a solution. So I'm going to wrap up here on the sacred account. You guys are like just in complete like apathy, like crap, man, this is doom. So I'm going to share with you the sacred account. The sacred account is a product or service we offer to our clients. I personally put the majority of my money in my sacred account. The rest of it goes into gold and silver, my business and real estate. And the sacred account is great because it gives you the tax-free growth you get in the Roth IRA, but you can use the money anytime you want. And the government cannot touch it, okay? There's no management fees. Wall Street is not involved. There's no management fees. In fact, one of our companies that sets up sacred accounts, they actually own a company called Oppenheimer, which is one of the major mutual fund companies on Wall Street. So imagine, like, not being the guy that invested in the mutual fund, but being the guy that's like, that's a money-making machine. I'm going to buy the company. That's what you have in your sacred account. That's where some of the money comes from. It's a conglomerate. They buy all these companies. So there's no management fees. It cannot be changed or taken away. A sacred account is called a unilateral contract, meaning there's one party to the agreement. That one party is you, which means anyone that's not you has no say in the agreement. The insurance company can't change it. The IRS can't change it. The federal government can't change it. Creditors can't change it. Your bank can't change it. It's in your control only. That's a big benefit. Control equals income. All right. Now, you cannot lose money. That's another benefit of the sacred account. You can never lose money. Remember we talked about all the volatility, ups and downs in the market? That can't happen in a sacred account. But the sacred account, I can make you 2 guarantees. I can tell you, Nano, I will always make you money. Nano, I will never lose you money. Nano, I will never charge you management fees. Do we have a deal?
In fact, I got a track record to show you.
And I have a 150-year track record to prove it. That's the deal you want to do. Not, hey, Nano, you'll pay me no matter what. And by the way, you're going to pay me 5% up front just for the opportunity to let me use your money. And I'm probably going to lose all of it and do dishonest things with it and then never tell you about it and just get bailed out by the government and you won't have anything. Like, which one would you rather pick? Now, the next thing that makes this a benefit, again, is you'll always make money. Okay, the sacred account is guaranteed to make 4% no matter what. On average, for 150 years in a row, it's actually outperformed that. It's averaged 6 to 8% in dividends. And then lastly, it's been around since the early 1800s. Okay, so would you rather invest with something that's only been around 22 years, or would you rather invest with something that's been around 200 years? Think about it. 200 years track record versus 20 years track record. Which one is probably better? I mean, I'm going to go probably with the 200 years. It's 10 times better, literally 10x better. Okay, so that's the sacred account. So if you've been watching this tonight, you have a 401k, you have an IRA, you have a Roth, you've been thinking about investing and you didn't know any of this information before, or you've known it, you just never were validated. Like a lot of times when I talk to clients, they're like, dude, I've always had that feeling in my gut. No one's ever actually like come out and said I'm right though. Now I see I'm right and I want to work with you now. If that's you tonight, I want you to go to sacredaccount.com. It's on the screen here on the slideshow, sacredaccount.com. There's tons of information to learn about the sacred account, and it's all free. We're not going to charge you for the information. We'll jump on a call with you for free as well. We'll do the numbers with you for free as well. If you want to work with us at that point, we can talk about it. But this is really just, we want to give you education. Okay, we're not here to just pitch something and make a commission on you like a lot of these advisors and Wall Street firms are. We want to make sure you actually understand where your money's at. Okay, so that's what I want to end on tonight. Real quick, are there any questions we have?
None so far.
Cool. All right, so we're going to go ahead and tune out here for tonight, I guess. Thank you guys for tuning in. We will have this transcribed, so we're going to turn this into an ebook for you guys, send that out this week. Thank you for watching. Make sure that you do like, share, and subscribe. We appreciate you all. Have a fantastic night.